3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Welcome to the Remote Photography Podcast. In this episode, I speak with model, photographer and studio owner Sinopa Rin about her remote photography experiences. Enjoy the podcast. Hi Sinopa, thanks for doing the podcast. If people don't know who you are, can you give us a brief history of your time in the industry, please?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, first of all. Yes, I am Sinopa Rin. I am a model, photographer and studio owner. I've been in the industry for 13 and a bit years now, which is a bit mad. I feel very old sometimes. Yes, I started out as a model and then started photography shortly after and then became a studio owner in 2019. Good timing. So yes, that's me.
So especially like you've just mentioned the studio owner, you seem to, from what I can gather, you were hit on like three fronts as being a model, a photographer and a studio owner when the pandemic happened?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was very much a triple threat from that point. Obviously, the modelling and photography was completely decimated, as you know. But I had just very recently actually become a co-owner at my local studio. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of at the end of 2019. And we did a big expansion. We moved over into the unit next door and kind of, doubled our space. Mm-hmm. And we planned to have a big kind of welcome party, a big shindig on the 1st of April 2020. So that went well.
No one turned up yet.
No, nobody came.
Yeah, so you must have felt like you say, it was a triple whammy. So how did you find out about remote shooting? Was it you'd seen people do it on the internet, or it had been like you seen it on Facebook, or how did you find out about it?
I think I saw a few things kind of buzzing around Instagram, I think. It feels like a very long time ago now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd seen a few people doing sort of the remote stuff between devices, like phones and doing kind of the screenshot thing. And to be honest, I wasn't convinced, because of the quality of the image. And I also had, from a selfish point of view, a sort of a safety concern, I suppose, maybe that's wrong, about the screenshot aspect, because you don't know when somebody's doing it.
Exactly, yeah.
And obviously a big part of my job is knowing when you're taking an image and posing accordingly. Yeah. I didn't like the idea that somebody could just sort of grab a screenshot whenever they wanted. Mm-hmm. So, kind of initial thoughts about it were a little bit reticent. But actually the first remote shoot that I did was with a photographer in America. Mm-hmm. And I was completely convinced and then kind of threw myself into it after that, really.
Taking it as a model, whereabouts have you shot remotely? Where have the photographers called in from, so to speak?
I've done a couple with photographers in the US, but for the most part, they have been UK-based. I've had a few inquiries from people further afield, but generally most of them seem to be the UK. I've had loads from Scotland, which is really interesting and which is lovely because I love Scottish people and the accent and stuff. So that's really nice. But yeah, it just seems to be kind of coincidental that I've had loads and loads of Scottish people.
So we're recording the episode in August 2021 and the UK is open a little bit more. Have you found that remote shoots in the UK have died down a bit, or is it more you're finding that people from overseas are still doing remotes?
I have had a few more inquiries from people overseas, but the UK ones do seem to have reduced. I'm still working with quite a few people sort of in Scotland and places like that, because obviously, there is a distance aspect. Yeah. And a lot of them only want to do kind of a couple of hours at a time. And it would be a huge ask for them to come all the way down to the South Coast to do 2 hours and go home again. Yeah. So I think that is actually something that's going to continue. I haven't had the energy to pursue remote shoots as much recently, unfortunately, because, now that things are opening back up again and I'm in the studio in person and things like that.
But have you found having a studio is letting you maybe have that option? Because obviously there may be photographers who have disabilities and stuff or can't travel, that you can still offer that service if you wanted to?
Yes, and that's something that I really love about remote shoots, is that, people with health conditions or disabilities or anything like that absolutely can make the most of everything that we have at the studio. Yeah. Even if people are local, unfortunately, the whole of the studio is on the first floor. So, there's a staircase aspect. So it's really lovely that I can offer that to people. And it's also really nice to have a space that's separate from my home, because I'm quite a private person. I've never conducted shoots in person from my home either. So even though there is more of a aspect of control in a remote shoot, because obviously you don't have an extra person in the house. I love that I can sort of have that removed from my personal space a little bit.
Yeah, so really you're keeping both things separate, as it were.
Yeah, which is really good for me, because I'm a terrible workaholic and I find it really, really hard to switch off anyway.
In the few years I've known you, that is true. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really, really bad. I don't understand the definition of working hours if I'm awake.
What's the weekend off? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand that concept. So, yeah, it's really great for sort of my mental health to be able to have somewhere that's completely separate, so I can come home and just be at home.
Yeah. Have you found having a studio as well that you can obviously change sets and change the background and stuff, so you're always offering something different? Yeah,
and I really love that. Having sort of been in the industry for quite a long time, but always being sort of quite nomadic as a model, you often don't have a space. As I say, I don't work from home, so I don't have a space that I can sort of mould into being something of my own.
Yeah.
So having the studio is a wonderful experiment where I can kind of go in and just build something. And if it's rubbish, then I'll take it down again a week later. And if it isn't, then great.
So when you started looking into remote photography, as in using a camera rather than the phone, did you do some test shoots before just to see if it was something that would work, or do you just go like following straight to do remote shoots?
Good question. So the first couple of remote shoots I did were on my phone, but the photographer who was in America was photographing his phone with his camera.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It wasn't the screenshot thing, which was great. That sort of made me really comfortable, and it felt like an in-person shoot, because when I looked at him, I could see a camera looking back at me, so that kind of felt comfortable. And then I did a test with you, actually.
Yeah, we did. I didn't know if it was the first, but
I think it must have been one, if not the first, one of the first ones. And you were very patient and very lovely with me, which is much appreciated. I also did a little test shoot with Ivory Flame, who I believe is a guest on your podcast.
Yeah, very first one,
Very first one. Yeah. And we did a little shoot either way, because she is also a phenomenal photographer. And so I photographed her remotely, and then she photographed me remotely, just so that we could get an idea of how it worked from the other perspective. Because, when you're a model, or if you're modeling with remote shoots all the time, you don't necessarily understand how it looks from the photographer's perspective.
Yeah.
So that was really, really helpful to kind of, just be able to look at it from a logistic point of view, and how do I communicate with you, and where are the buttons and stuff.
And did you find, obviously, having the files at your end, it was easier to like review stuff and see if there was like, say they caught you mid pose or something, or pulling a funny face, that you could go, okay, we'll delete this file, rather than say at a shoot you'd have to look at the back of the camera and then the photographer have to do it? Did you find that was more put you at ease as well?
Me pulling a funny face? No, never. Because I don't shoot higher levels, all my remote shoots have been sort of lingerie mat. I haven't had that concern of somebody shooting something that they shouldn't. I review the images with the photographer as we go along, and then I usually have a look through them when I get home and things, because that's a lovely thing to do, like reviewing the back of the camera. I don't think I have deleted anything, actually. Come think of it, occasionally you'll get a blink or whatever, but you would get that in person anyway. And I just like to try and hopefully trust people that they won't be uploading, between poses or whatever. And for the most part, everybody has been really lovely, so it's not been an issue.
Yeah, I found, like, obviously not with, like you say, the levels you do, but I found models have found it more at ease, that because the files at their end, they can go through and check everything that the photographer's shot, just in case, like you say, the mid blink or whatever, and then they feel a bit more relaxed. Because
I imagine, I imagine that somebody who does higher levels than me would find that a huge, a huge positive of it, that they can review stuff and not send anything that doesn't need to be sent. Which is another bonus.
Okay, moving on to your setup. What's the current remote setup you have at the studio?
So I shoot with my Canon 5D Mark III. I've got a variety of lenses, zooms and primes. I tend to towards the primes for remote shoots. Because of the because they're faster and low light capabilities and stuff. The studio is a full professional studio with everything you could ever dream of. So I won't give you all of the list of kit because I'll be here for the rest of the day. But yeah, the lovely thing about that, and the great thing for photographers who shoot me remotely at the studio, is that they have everything at their fingertips.
Yeah. With your camera, had you already bought it just so you could take pictures yourself, or was it something that you had to buy because of remote shooting?
No, I already had my kit. I've had a camera for a really long time. I studied photography in college, so I had a camera all the way back then. So I already had my 5D. But no, I don't think I bought anything additional except maybe a cable.
So everything was more or less in place. You just didn't know you had everything ready when obviously the pandemic happened and you looked into remote shoots.
Yeah, absolutely. I started off sort of when we were in the first lockdown doing self-portraits, which I had kind of dabbled with previously, but I'd never really got the technical aspect down. Yeah. So, it's always, it's difficult trying to do everything all by yourself. But yeah, I'd never kind of got the technical bit sort of perfected. So then I really threw myself into doing self-portraits in the first lockdown and really got that sorted. Yeah. And then it was a very small jump from doing that because, I use the Canon utility software to do it myself, so I can live view myself and all that kind of thing. And I have my cables and blah, blah, blah. So it was really only the sort of screen sharing bit with the photographer that I needed to do to make it remote.
Did you think this was going to be something like it was going to be maybe a month or two and then we'd be back to normal? Or did you think, oh, hold on, we're in for the long haul?
Yeah, I don't think anybody could have predicted that 18 months later we would still be here. But I tried to sort of play it by ear a little bit. I'm very lucky that I, live at home. I live with my husband. We have a garden. I have a safe and comfortable space that I could spend my lockdown in. Yeah. So I sort of tried not to worry about it too much, otherwise it was just going to get really stressful. So I tried to just, play it by ear.
So with the remote shooting, did you find, because I think you'd be by yourself, so you would have to get up, change the lens, move the camera, tripod, etc. Did you find that limiting, or did you just think, well, hold on, this lets me be a bit more creative?
Yes and no. I think it depends a lot on the photographer that you're working with. Yeah. So some people have given me loads and loads of really specific instructions of what they want to achieve. And they are really sort of vocal in their communication about angle and about lens and about everything else. And then I've also had some photographers who are really laid back and really chill, and quite a few of them who have never been in the studio before, who sort of need a little bit more guidance from me, because obviously I'm in the room and I can see what's possible. Yeah. So I think it depends on the person that you're working with. The one thing I have found is that no matter where I put anything, be it a tripod or a light or whatever, I'm going to trip over it 2 minutes later. The studio is quite large. Yeah. And just every single time I will end up falling over something. I would usually pull the cable out and disconnect the camera, and you always seem to box yourself into a little corner with all of this kit around you.
Yeah, I think we had it with our one. You literally were going, oh, there's a wire here. And
there's a wire there. Oh, there's a tripod there. There's a light here.
So speaking of the photographers giving you ideas, how would you like them to approach you? Is it just through an email describing what they'd like to do, or like a mood board so you can get a kind of a feel how they want to shoot, and whereabouts in the studio you could do that?
This is going to sound a bit of a cop-out answer, but I genuinely enjoy working with people that do all of that and more and less, because I have the ability to do it all myself. I shoot self-portraits and things. Yeah. I am very comfortable for somebody to come to me and say, I like what you're doing, but I don't really know what to do with you, and then we can build it together. And equally, it's really lovely to have people who have a really firm idea and sort of have something that maybe I have done before, maybe I haven't, and come to me and say, this is exactly what I want to do, and then I can get really excited about someone else's idea, which is lovely. Cool. So it's the variety for me, I think.
So when a photographer approaches you, how do you prefer them to do it? Is it through Instagram or through the Facebook groups, or just an email?
Any of the above. You can contact me directly through the studio Instagram, which is Ferrum Studio, all one word. You can contact me on my personal Instagram, which is Sinopa Rin. You can contact me in the Facebook groups, on Purple via my email, wherever you please, and I will get back to you.
Yeah, wherever Sinopa Rin is, you can contact her.
Exactly.
Okay. So with stuff opening up, do you think at the studio, when you do say maybe like model days or studio days, do you think you'd add an element of remote shooting in there for people who maybe couldn't get to the studio or overseas?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to sort of incorporate remote shoots as a more common part of the studio day to day. I think that's a really brilliant thing that has come from the pandemic. And as we were saying about, photographers with health issues or disabilities and things, I would love for the studio to be more accessible for them. We are starting to run, group shoots and studio days and things again now that we can. And so, yeah, I will absolutely sort of start becoming more active in the groups and things again now that I'm finding my feet, because it was all a little bit overwhelming at first when we were making back and everything.
So with the Facebook groups, did you find that helped focus when you were doing the remote shoots a lot? Did you find that it helped focus? Say like you were going to the studio and say, "Well, I've got this location, this theme." Did you find that helped get more people interested rather than doing a blanket casting?
Yeah, I think so. And I think because the results of remote shoots, you can't tell whether they're shot remotely or not.
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful to be able to post them in a specific group, because otherwise they might get kind of lost in the other, other images in the ether.
Yeah.
So it was lovely. And it was lovely to connect with people who were also doing the same thing.
So with the remote shoots, is there any photographers that you've kind of worked with and you've made plans to work with them in person? I
actually had one last week.
Yeah.
Who is a photographer who isn't actually all that far from me. And he was doing a 4 seasons theme. So he's shooting 4 models, spring, summer, autumn, winter. And no prizes for guessing which season I was. And at the time we had the autumn corner in the studio. So it had this beautiful sort of half an archway of all autumn foliage in the orange corner, and the natural light was beautiful. And I said to him, is this something that would be a helpful element for your project? And he said, well, actually, I wanted to work at another studio which is more local to him. He said, but I would love to get down even just for a little set. And I said, well, why don't we do it remotely? And so we just did 1 hour just in that corner, which was perfect. And then on Monday, just gone, I then went to another studio and worked with him in person for the remaining sort of time. Yeah. And so that was really brilliant. That was an amalgamation of both things.
So you've got that first shoot out of the way, so now you know how they work and how that he knows how you pose and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, in this instance, I had actually worked with him previously, but it was just a really brilliant extra thing that I could offer because, he wouldn't have come all the way down to the studio. It's probably a couple of hours drive for him for an hour just to use that one set. So he wouldn't have been able to use that, and that would have been a limitation. Whereas remotely, I can say to him, oh, well, let's just do an hour on this, and then another day we'll do 3 hours somewhere else.
At this time, obviously, we can shoot in person relatively safely. Do you see remote still being around, or is it something that's going to die away, or it's still going to be a little bit rather than being on par with in shoot in person?
Yeah, I think it's probably going to come in ebbs and flows. I think there was a huge surge of it, in the first lockdown because nobody could do anything or go anywhere. And obviously now, I can only speak for myself, but it seems to me that, they're becoming a little bit less common because we can get out and shoot with people. Yeah. And obviously there is a social element of being in the presence of another person that you don't get from a remote shoot. And I think people have really missed that kind of social being in the same room with somebody interaction. But I would like to think that they would continue. And, I keep mentioning photographers with disabilities or, whatever. It's a lovely way for them to stay connected. It's a lovely way for me to reach people who are further afield. I've seen lots of models doing, sort of booking an amazing location or something for a weekend and then just hosting remote shoots entirely from there, from anywhere in the world, which I mean is a fantastic thing to be able to do. And as a model who has spent many, many years sitting on trains, going from A to B and back again, what a wonderful thing to be able to kind of sit in one place and have people come to you from all over.
So thanks for doing the podcast. Where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Instagram, either my model account, which is Sinopa Rin, or my studio account, which is Fairham Studio, all one word. on the Fairham Studio Instagram, we also have a really helpful little link to a sort of 360 virtual tour of the space, which if you're looking to do a remote shoot is really handy because it will give you kind of an idea of what we have and what's available without having to be there in person. I'm also on Facebook. I'm in a lot of the remote shoot groups. I'm on Purpleport, as is the studio, and all those other wonderful places.
Thanks, Sinopa, for doing the podcast, and I look forward to seeing some more images from you, be it remotely or in person.
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm really honoured to have been invited.
Did you find... Well, sorry, let me rephrase that. Did you... Oh, God, come on, John, get the right phrase.
It's because of your lovely soothing voice. It's not because of the content.
Yeah, okay, yeah, thanks. Now that, oh, son of a bleep.
So I have trailed off. No, let me do that again. That was crap. Rubbish. So you can get hold of me on Instagram, either my model account, which is Sinopa Rin, or my Instagram. Sorry, you're giving me.
It's why I can bleep the F out. So
sorry.
You're actually the first person who ever sweared on the podcast. So
no, it would be me.
Yeah,
it would be me. I'm impressed. I've got this far.
Yeah,
right.
I'm going to put that in the outtake. So thanks, Sinopa, for doing the podcast, and I look forward to. No, it's a son of a. Right.
It's because you don't look forward to seeing me. That's why.
See, now you've been cocking up, and now I can't get my words out. All right, let's try this again.
Catching.